If you're in midlife and wondering where the hell your desire went or how to get it back and make it hotter than ever, you just found your show. I am Dr. Stacy, clinical sexologist and certified sex coach, and this is the Purple Passion Project, the intimacy and sex podcast for midlife and beyond. Just real spicy conversations about desire, intimacy, and pleasure that will change the way you think about your sex life forever. Let's do it. Hey there, I'm Dr. Stacy, and this episode is brought to you by my Pleasure Playbook Fantasy Play. It is all about turning erotic imagination into real life pleasure. So if you've ever had a fantasy that maybe turned you on and then immediately felt guilty about it, this guide, step by step, is written for you. It is a step-by-step playbook for taking your erotic imagination and turning it into actual pleasure, actual intimacy, and a sex life that finally matches what's been living in your head. So grab it at drstacyfriedman.com under the shop link where you'll find all the pleasure playbooks, and the link will be in the show notes. And speaking of fantasy, that is exactly what we are getting into today. So welcome to the Purple Passion Project, where we talk sex, intimacy, and all the deliciously naughty things that you've been thinking about that no one gave you permission to say out loud. Midlife is not when your sex life slows down. It's when it's meant to be hotter than ever. So buckle up, Buttercup. Here we go. And I want to introduce today's guest. This is everything that I love about this conversation. Bold, unapologetic, completely committed to the idea that women deserve to know their bodies, their own pleasure, and their own desires fully, completely. And she is an award-winning spicy romance author, writing under multiple pen names, a sexuality podcaster, and yes, I have been a guest on her show, so I already know that she is the real deal, an audiobook narrator, and someone who spent years as a nurse before deciding that helping people feel alive in their bodies was more important than almost anything else. So she writes open door romance. And if you don't know what that means yet, stay tuned because you're about to get educated and maybe a little turned on. She shed her shame in her 40s and has been helping other women do the same ever since. So we are going to welcome Ruan Willow to the show. Ooh, hello.
I loved all of that. That was amazing. Thank you so much. And I agree with everything you said. You said it beautifully.
Awesome. I'm just really, really excited because I know with everybody that I work with, there are so many women who don't have permission or don't even understand how to fantasize. And I just love that you are doing what you're doing to help so many people learning that skill, because I think it really is a skill.
I think it is too. And I think that a lot of people, like you said, are trapped in shame or, just things they think they shouldn't do. Even if it's not even shame, it's like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Or that's not for me. And people are really missing out on so much wonderfulness, because we're just getting blocked by this shame. And so we're not exploring different things. And so it's just, there's so much that you can explore if you just let go of that, and just a fantasy is a fantasy. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right. Lots of wonderfulness. I like how you put that. So I wanted to ask you though, because you said you spent years as a nurse, and it's funny because I was in the medical field for 26 years doing ultrasound, and now I'm helping people with their bodies. So I learned a lot being in the medical field. So what brought you from that shift from being a nurse to all of a sudden becoming this spicy romance author? And how did you know that, okay, this is what I want to do?
Well, I always wanted to write. So even when I was a young child, I wrote. But I also really wanted to work in the medical field. And being trained and working as a nurse, you really learn to focus on people.
Right.
You're really trying to provide what that person's needs. It's like you're really focused on their needs more than any, other areas of, you're really focused on what does this patient need? You're the patient advocate. And so for me, that background really stuck. And I just really feel very strongly that a lot of women, especially, aren't exploring their sexuality. They aren't enjoying it. They're taking into this amazing network of pleasure and joy we have in our brains and in our bodies and in our nerves, in our genitals. Like
Yeah.
we're like even scared to even like talk. Some people are even scared to even talk about that or acknowledge that we now have the knowledge that there's over 10,000 nerve endings in the female clitoris. It's like something that's like scary to people. But think
Yeah.
about how incredible that is. There are no other organs that have that many nerves, right? So we were meant to have pleasure. This is something, pleasure is our birthright. I say all the time. And women need to break through that and just embrace that because I just feel like if you don't do it, you're missing out on so much in life. Sexual health is a part of mental health, and you're missing out a huge chunk if
Yeah.
you're going to put it on the shelf. I was just going to say, then I was writing romance, and I really felt like it was more genuine to include the full story, the open door. So it's like, you're telling the story, and the door doesn't shut, and then the characters do their stuff off in the room. No, you're immersed in their full story. And I felt more genuine, including sex in the stories, because to me it was a full story instead of being like, oh, okay, never mind, you don't get to be a part of this. It was like excluding the reader. I'm like, no. And I think you can really move characters through sex scenes because that's where they're so vulnerable and they're
Right.
just there's so much stuff that can happen there. So it gets shut down by a lot of people, but it's really a wonderful area to explore in stories.
Yeah, and like you were talking about the clitoris with all the nerve endings, and we were born with a clitoris for the only purpose of pleasure. And there are so many women that
Mm-hmm.
just they walk around with shame and about their sexuality, about their bodies, where they
Mm-hmm.
don't even have the opportunity to explore. And so when you were talking about, or when I introduced you and I talked about the shame, you had mentioned that you were carrying a
Mm-hmm.
lot of shame with your sexuality when you were younger. And so what did that feel like and how did you transform yourself? Was it by doing the stories or did you do the stories specifically to transform yourself?
I think it all happened concurrently. So for me, I had a lot of shame growing up. It was, brought on by the way my mother reacted to me when I talked about how much I enjoyed touching myself. And her reaction was, you shouldn't be doing that. So that really shut me down as far as exploring my own body. But then also, culture. And yeah, I'm in the Midwest. So, people being more open to new things and new ideas. So it kind of trickles in from the out to the in. Like almost everything is a slow trickle. So we're like the center is the last to get a lot of the changes that happen in culture. So religion also was
Yeah.
not a huge restriction for me, but it was still there. So and culture. And so for me, I just really, and I think also just being in midlife really just changed my entire outlook. A lot of people say, especially women say that where they start to be more focused on themselves, they start to have so much confidence. They really don't care what other people think about them, which is a blissful, wonderful thing. And I love it. And it only gets better. And so I really started to focus more on myself. I started to get a few sex toys and I really explored my body and I learned so much that I had no idea about in my entire life. And then I had been writing romance and I really wanted to start including sex, like I said, because it was the full story. It wasn't, shutting people out, readers out of the full story. You get the whole story. So that's kind of all concurrently happened at the same time. And as I first started writing, then people were telling me I should start a podcast. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. I'm doing all this writing. So all kind of like developed all at the same time and exploded at once. So it's been wonderful. I wouldn't change anything for it because I'm so much more open. I'm so much more relaxed, so much more confident, and I understand my body. Like I went years not understanding my body. And that's just, to me, that's really sad. We were given this body and it's a blessing. And for me to be scared to learn my own body and learn my own pleasure, that is a huge disservice that we are taught.
It's true. And I think what
We need to
happens so
break it.
many times, yeah, I mean, people come to me all the time, and they don't know where their clitoris is, or they don't understand the connection of the mind to
Right.
the body. And they want to have some surgical procedure to allow them to
Mhm.
feel orgasm, or they want to be able to get this pill that's going to help them with desire. And it's like, you're not really understanding what the process is to help build that
Right.
desire. And like you said, a lot of people around midlife that's where a lot of my clients are. And that's why I am doing this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
is to focus on that midlife stage where people are like, you know what? I never learned it, but now I don't give a shit. And I want to know all about my body.
Right. It's a blessing to not give a shit. Like it's just wonderful to be like, and just to like focus more on yourself and not
Yeah.
have to feel guilty even for doing that. Like that is ridiculous that we even have that thought in our brains.
Yeah. Well, like you said, pleasure is our birthright. And I believe also that women were not taught years back that we were allowed to have pleasure. And when women are starting to
Right.
want their pleasure now and they're saying that they're not enjoying sex and their partners want it and they're doing it out of obligation, because you're not allowing yourself to want sex. You're not allowing yourself to desire it, and you're not giving yourself the context or the information to build it. And books and erotica are things that I recommend greatly. And I actually just gave 2 people your information because I'm working with a couple people who have never
Awesome.
fantasized. Yeah, they've never fantasized. They've never
Oh,
looked outside, because for a lot of women, porn is not the answer. They are completely against it. But things like reading, that is something that people can
right.
use to help exercise
Mhm.
their brain.
Oh, absolutely. It's a way to explore new ideas. You could even read something with your partner and it's a way to like introduce it instead of like having a direct question to them, and just try things out. It's just it's indirect, it's safer. It's a safer place to process these ideas and process your desires and fantasies. Like, do I like this? Because you can identify with that character, right? And you can see what the character is feeling. And it kind of helps you go through the brain exercise of, would I like this? Do I like what's happening to this person,
Right.
this character? Would I do this? What would I do? It's almost like a practice
Yeah.
before you maybe try something sexually.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a quick break here. Since we're talking a lot about midlife, I do have something that I'm just genuinely obsessed with and absolutely loving it. It's my community about midlife, and it's called the Vibe Tribe. And so if people have been listening and saying, oh my God, she's talking exactly to me, there are people in the Vibe Tribe that are dealing with these same issues, saying the exact same thing. And so the Vibe Tribe is equal parts fun, naughty, educational, and it's kind of the connection that you didn't know you were missing from other people in midlife. And I show up there personally. I have live Q&A, and there's groups, there's courses, there's conversations that'll make you laugh and make you think and make you wonder why you weren't in there sooner. So if you are interested in that, go to drstacyfriedman.com and click on the Vibe Tribe. You can get a free week to try it out. So choose the men's or the women's, and you can get that free week in the upgraded section. So you can get access to all of that. And you could always downgrade or cancel at any time. So come and find your people, and we'll talk about what kind of spicy books we can get next. And Ruan can help us figure out what we need. But you talked a little bit about the open door romance. So what exactly, kind of get a little bit more into that, because they may not understand exactly what that means. So how do you define that?
Well, a lot of people will talk about, and traditionally, a lot of people have talked about books as being dirty or clean. Well, to me, sex is, dirty is a kink. Okay. Dirty can be a kink that you can have fun with, but sex itself is not dirty. Sex is natural. And so it's really become unpopular with a lot of romance authors to use the word clean and dirty to talk about books. And to talk about that puts a negative connotation. That's not sex positive.
Right.
So open door versus closed door is much more appropriate, and it does not shame sex. It does not call sex dirty or wrong. It acknowledges that sex is natural and normal and healthy, and we were actually made to have sex. We were meant to. Our bodies were created for this. We were given these organs for a reason. So it's just, open door just means basically you're going to learn more about their intimacy. You're going to learn about what they do in the bedroom. You're going to not be shut out. The door is open for you to see all of these wonderful things that they're experiencing together. It's not shut. You're not cut off. You're not, hey, sorry, you're not included. You get to be a part of it. And to me, I think that's really special because you get to see the amazing interactions that happen between these characters and their most intimate, private moments. I mean, that's a huge, beautiful thing. So that's the big push as people are trying to get rid of those. This is a clean romance. This is a sweet
Right.
romance. You can have sweetness with sex. I mean, come on.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
why are we giving it these negative connotations? We need to use new words to give it a safer, shame-free connotation and framework.
Yeah, I see that. I can totally understand because the terms dirty and clean, like that dirty does give it a bad connotation. And, one of the things that you had mentioned about just the sex scenes and getting to know the characters, and I think it is really important because that kind of helps that fantasy kind of go along and also to help normalize and
Mhm.
educate things like that. So when you're
Yes.
talking to people, I don't know if you talk to anybody that buys your books or whatever, but what is meant to happen in the reader's body and their mind when they're kind of encountering a sex scene that you are writing specifically for them to kind of understand? What are you hoping kind of happens with them?
Well, I'm hoping it opens them up. I'm hoping that it normalizes it for them, normalizes sex for them, sexual feelings and arousal, and that it's not a bad thing, and that it can be for them too, right? Like you experience this with the character, you kind of experience it a little bit, and our brain is kind of like actually going through the motions of what the characters are going through. So I think it normalizes it. It makes you feel like you can think about these things in a safe place. Sometimes you don't want to do these things, but they turn you on. So that's another safe place that you could exercise your brain to think about these things is through a book or an audiobook where maybe you don't want to have a threesome, but maybe turn on. So this is a safe place to actually explore that, right? So there's so many different books out there that you can try. And that's the beautiful thing is there are so many. If you have a kink, there's probably a book out there for you. Dirty can also be a kink.
Absolutely. And I think that what happens so many times is that when I work with women that don't fantasize or they're not very skilled when it comes to sex, and they've never had the opportunity to learn other things because they don't watch porn. So they don't see different positions. They don't see
Mhm.
different ways a woman can be empowered or assertive or things like that. So when you ask them, well, what would you want the man to do? It's like, I don't know, just I guess kiss me, or I don't know. They literally don't know what they
Right.
don't know. And so being in that book, being in
Right.
that experience can help them understand, you know what? That might be fun. Oh, that got me hot. Kind of paying attention to what their body is feeling during those scenes that they could maybe bring to their partner.
Very healing too. Like say for instance, you maybe have some trauma or something in your life that is related to sexuality. If you read a lot of books and it's actually quite healing to go through these things. And the other thing I really want to talk about too is that we need to reframe these words, right? Like I like to take ownership of words, and some people find certain words cringy or they don't like that word, it turns them off. But you know what? The more we use it and the more we own it, it takes that negative connotation off of it, and it's just a word, right? It's just a word. It's not something that's insulting or bad. But that's what's so hard is like even in our social media, they're like cutting out, talking about women's body parts like they're dirty. I'm like, why is a body part dirty? Why do we even remotely go there? This is a body part. It is not something bad. And so it's just perpetuated everywhere and coming at us from all areas. So romance books is a safe place to shed all of that. So I always ask people to also to open up your brain and not just don't take culture's viewpoints of these words, right? We don't have to keep those in our brain. We can make them our own and we can put a positive light on them.
Change the story in your book. Did a social media post, and one of the hashtags was vaginal health because we were talking about balancing the pH. And one of the platforms deleted it, took it off, and said they can't post it unless it's removed. They removed the term vaginal health because the word vagina was in there.
Unbelievable.
I was appalled. And I'm thinking, I understand if you're saying shove something in the vagina, but I'm saying vaginal health. And so the fact that
Right.
we don't have a lot of the social
Right.
media that is open to letting us speak, that privacy in your own home can be so helpful, being able to actually get things that could help stimulate you, help educate you, help heal you. I love that.
I think we also have to learn our arousal. And if you've never spent time on that, you need to spend time on that with your own body, with yourself, with your brain, thinking about these things. In media like romance books or audiobooks, they can help you go there and give you ideas. Like you said, like some people don't even really know what to say. They don't have ideas because they haven't felt safe to think or talk about those things or even ask for them. So it's also going to be an idea generating thing for you. Yes, you might run into some things that you don't like, but then go to the next book, right? If you're really that offended by a book, there's a lot of them out there.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I like, looking into, researching you about writing about strong female characters that are exploring their sexuality. I love how some of the information you have in there is about partners who are supporting them. And I think that it's so important because a lot of women feel shame that they don't feel like they could even bring it up to their partners. And so why was that so important for you to show? Is there any story that you had, or just from talking with other people that did not have that support?
Yeah, this is exactly why I like to do it, because women are not empowered to have focus on their sexuality or enjoy their sexuality. So my characters, my female characters, really are empowered. They focus on their sexuality. And then they have the supportive partners that come in and they support them. And so it's a wonderful, consensual, beautiful thing. And yes, I am going to describe how she feels, what she goes through, the thoughts in her head, and I try to focus on different areas because I have, have a wide interest in different areas of sexuality myself. But we just need to practice. I think in reading and in consuming media, we can be more open if we allow ourselves to be. And it kind of gives you a permission. And it's sad that we have to give ourselves permission to do something we were created to do. Like, think about how messed up it is. We're having to give ourselves permission to something we were created to do and enjoy. That's sort of mind-blowing, isn't it? That's control. And we don't need to let them have it. We can take control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so many people I work with, they have a hard time with that because it's been ingrained in their heads. And so that's one of the things that I offer with my coaching, is because, always tell people, if something in the episodes hit a nerve, that feeling is information, and knowing what's actually going on and actually changing it are two very different things. And so that's where a lot of the coaching comes in. So I work one-to-one with people who are just done surviving their sex lives and actually want to have something with meaning, something that they have been given permission to help build their confidence in the bedroom. So I offer people a free 30-minute private intimacy consult. And people can find that on my website at drstacyfriedman.com. They can click on the link and we can talk about it. But that permission, that's like my number one thing I tell everybody. You have permission, and I'm giving it to you.
And then I think in following that, they need to give it to themselves. Like, I give myself permission to explore sexuality and explore my body and to enjoy this, right? To spend time on it. And I think a lot of people also will just say, oh, you know what? I have all this other stuff going on in my life. I'm going to put my sexuality over on the shelf and I'll think about that later. Or it's really not that important to me. They're really missing out. They really are missing out. That's all I got to say. You really need to spend time on yourself.
I think that's super, super important, because a lot of women are always focusing on the kids, focusing on their partners, focusing on work. And then at the end of the night, they wonder why they have no time, no energy, no desire. And just think about reading erotica at night or spicy romance can totally introduce women to fantasies they didn't even know they had. And so that permission makes it, I said, just give yourself 15 minutes, even if you're just reading one chapter. That is so important.
So maybe there's something out there that you've never even remotely heard of, like you said. So you can experience it a little bit and maybe enjoy it. And I don't know, I just think the more that you're exposed to it, the more you expose yourself to it, it becomes more normalized. Like, okay, if you keep
Yes.
reading a book, maybe it's going to pop in your head. Oh, you know what? Maybe I do deserve pleasure, right? Yeah, it's a good practice to do to keep it in your brain to just make it easier for yourself to make that transition of like just shedding that shame and being like, okay, I can do this. I'm important.
I try to tell people, they'll say, oh, well, we don't have time. We don't have time. I said, everyone's got 15 minutes. If you are saying you don't have desire, it's not that you don't have desire, it's that the desire is hidden and
Yes.
you are dialing it back with all the other shit that you're dealing with in life. And so if this is something,
Mhm.
because a lot of women are not visual, they're more, emotional or more tangible, they need to see things or read things, that can be a definite help with libido and desire. And so some of the stuff that you write about, the ethical non-monogamy, polyamory, non-traditional type of structures, relationship structures, how do you talk about them on a page that kind of, I don't want to say normalizes it, but kind of makes feel a little bit more normal? So it's not like, oh my God, I can't read this. I need to be able to get something that's so-called normal. So how do you write about that where women could actually listen and fantasize about
Right.
it?
Forget it too. I want to say people who think they're too busy, you can listen to audiobooks while you're doing anything almost. That's the way you could get it. 15 minutes, listen to an audiobook while you're cleaning something, folding laundry, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, I like to have just, and I sort of hate the word normal because I don't
Yeah.
feel like it exists because there's such a wide range, a spectrum of all these different things, especially sexuality and alternative lifestyles. So I've interviewed so many people on my podcast that live the alternative lifestyles and they're very, very happy. So if you're in a relationship where you can't do some of those things, you could still read about them and enjoy them in that way. But I like to have just women who are typical women who maybe didn't focus on their sexuality, or maybe there was a bad relationship, their marriage was bad, or they were so shamed they didn't enjoy their sexuality most of their life. And so some of my books, I do love to include midlife women who are now, okay, hey, you know what? I am going to focus on me. And so they are typical American women. I'm not going to speak to other countries. I don't live in other countries, but then they are exploring these wild, crazy fantasies and many times doing them, and they have supportive partners. So I think it makes it more of a, oh my gosh, what is that? It makes less of that because they're typical women. They're midlife women who maybe, one book I have where she's divorced and she's now exploring her life. Another one is a bad marriage, but then they both reframe their brains and they turn their marriage completely around and become swingers. So I think that's the way to normalize it for people too, is to see that if they see themselves in that character in some way, shape, or form, and then they're doing these things, it's just normalizes it more.
Yeah. And I know that there's a lot of women that say that they don't feel comfortable or they feel guilty about reading these books. And like somehow they feel like, because a lot of people think, well, if I fantasize about somebody while I'm having sex with my partner, am I cheating or things like that? And what people don't understand is that fantasy is healthy. Fantasy gets the brain, it's exercise for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you're fantasizing about someone else, I mean, people fantasize about actors and actresses all the time, but that doesn't mean they're making you horny versus your partner. It just means that you're able to allow yourself to figure out different things. I mean, we're normal.
Right. And I like to take kind of these situations and apply them to something else. Like say you're eating a salad and you're fantasizing about a pizza. Does that mean you're a bad person? No. That's silly, right? So why do we apply these things to sex, right? So if we are consuming a bowl of carrots and we're fantasizing about a big bowl of chocolate ice cream, that doesn't make us a bad person. It just makes us human. It makes us thinking about different things, right? So so if we take some of these things and change it, like I always like to use the whole tasting a strawberry thing. Like it's not bad to taste a strawberry, right? That's a sensation. Why is it considered bad in our culture to like touch ourselves and feel sensations down in our genitals. Why is that bad? It's just a different part of our body. So I think if we take these shame inducing thoughts and we apply it to something else, we can see how ridiculous it is that we are allowing our culture to tell us these things are shameful. It's really quite silly if you think about it.
That feeling, like I tell people, when you take your bra off at the end of the day and it's like almost orgasmic and you're like, oh, and you're like, that feels so good. But no one's going to look at you like, oh, you're touching yourself. No, because it feels good. I don't care. If I take my bra, I want to touch myself. It feels good.
Yes. Well, focus more on the pleasure than of what you think you shouldn't be doing and someone told you you shouldn't be doing. Just focus on the pleasure, the feelings, and you're going to learn so much more about your body. You'll be so much happier, and you're just going to live so much more in the moment and in your body if you touch yourself and focus on your pleasure. Do I like this or do I not like this?
Absolutely.
Rather than, is this shameful? Should I do this? This is bad. So-and-so is going to be, judging me.
Yeah, you can't worry about the judgment. We're at the age now where, like you said, we're just going to say fuck it. And I want to just bring up one more thing about the pleasure playbooks that I talked about, because my pleasure playbooks are not erotic novels like Ruan's are, but they are the collection of that are step-by-step guides that have education, exercises, and prompts that actually help you make changes in your sex life and relationship. And it's pretty immediate. So if today's conversation is stirring something in you around your erotic imagination and you're not so sure, if you get one of these playbooks, it'll help you open your mind and being able to get one of Ruan's books afterwards. So that way you feel good about yourself. Grab Fantasy Play. It helps turn erotic imagination into real life pleasure and help you open your mind to that eroticism. So it was made for exactly this moment. And there's over 16 different playbooks in there: desire, intimacy, communication, connection, women's issues, men issues, kink, fantasy, all the stuff that you've been curious about, but maybe didn't know where to start. And they're only $27 each, and you can get the information the minute you download, and the link will be in the show notes. And once you start realizing, you know what, it's okay, I'm giving myself permission, then you could say, okay, give me some erotica. I want some good juicy stuff. Let me read. And so that will hopefully get you to that comfort stage where you can keep moving on. So I wanted to make sure, because like you were saying, that a lot of people do have the shame and they might judge themselves or feel guilty about things. I love this saying because I've said it too many times: stop yucking each other's yum, and talk to us what it really looks like to respect someone else's sexuality, even when it looks nothing like yours.
Well, does it really hurt you if someone else does something that you don't like? It's like really none of your business. So why yuck someone else's yum? You know what I mean? Like, if you don't like what they're doing, you don't have to tell them that. Like, stay in your lane, focus on what you like instead of shaming other people for what they like.
Yeah.
There are so many different kinks out there. And if it's consensual between two people, why do you care if they're doing it? That's what I really do not understand. We've had eroticism and erotic works and writings for like thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I mean, way back to hieroglyphics and walls and, Kama Sutra. Like, this is not a modern creation to have media in some shape or form about sex and sexuality. It's just that we have the shame now that maybe they didn't have back then. I don't know. We don't know because they didn't write about as much stuff back then, but it's not new, right? Because sexuality is a part of being human. It's a part of our humanity. So it only makes sense that it's going to be included. Think of all the people through, generations of writings, telling stories around bonfires, like storytelling has been around forever. This is just a different form of it. And you can sit down and read it and look at it and do it by yourself, which is also a beautiful thing because, in a group, it's different to listen to a story than it is to do it by yourself. So just, I guess the big thing is there are so many kinks out there and some of them are going to offend you, right? Yeah. Like, there's golden showers, there's anal, there's all these things that some people are going to be offended by. But instead of focusing on that it like hurts you to know about this, just focus on what you like and be like, okay, I don't care if people don't, I'm a vegetarian. I don't go around, preaching to everybody that they should be
Right.
a vegetarian and get
Right.
offended when people eat meat. Again, apply that same thinking to sexuality and be like, okay, well, I just don't like that, so I'm not going to do it. I don't like asparagus. I'm never going to eat it. Do I care that everybody
It
doesn't
makes
like
your pee
asparagus in the
smell.
room? No. Why should I care? I should be focused on what I like. I don't know. Why be judgmental about it?
No, I completely agree. And that's what I tell everybody as well. It may not be for you, but why yuck someone's yum? You are not in the bedroom with that person. People say things about like the ethical non-monogamy or different positions, or like you said, uh, the
Mhm.
golden showers or scat play or all these other things. Listen, it may not be something that I'm interested in, but just because it doesn't mean anything. I think that too many people are so focused about what other people are doing. If it's not for you, you don't do it. And one thing that I liked what you had talked about, you were talking about consent, and the enthusiastic consent is something that you talk about believing in deeply. And so
Yes.
besides just the books,
Yes.
what does that actually look like in real life to you? Like what makes you so passionate about that?
I just think that you're going to enjoy it you're going to enjoy your sexuality and your sex life so much more if you're giving enthusiastic consent. Like, I really want to do this. If you're excited about something, you're going to do it. If it's an obligation, oh, yeah, I got to wash the floor. Oh, yeah, I guess we should have sex. It's been 3 weeks. You're not going to enjoy
Obligation.
that, right? So, obligation, find something you enjoy, you're passionate about, you're excited about. And then you're going to have so much more fun, and you're gonna if you're climaxing and you're enjoying it, you're gonna want to do it again, right? So this is something that is going to give you enthusiastic consent. I think the whole obligation thing is horrible because
Yeah.
there's nothing enthusiastic about an obligation, right? Oh, I gotta pay bills, so that is lumped in that category. Why have sex, which is supposed to be a beautiful, wonderful, exciting, amazing experience? Why have obligation be a part of that? That's not enthusiastic consent. That is
Right.
okay. Well, I guess so. I guess we have to do. You know what I mean? Like, that's be excited and passionate.
Well, what I try to tell people is if you are going to do it and you're going to put yourself and you're going to take that half an hour and do it out of obligation and keep yourself in your mind thinking about this, thinking about that. The whole idea is that if you know you're already going to do it
Yeah.
for the 20, 30 minutes, make it something that you can be passionate
Mm-hmm.
about. Pay attention, take your mind, because a lot of women have such a difficult time. If you can read the books and fantasize, put a fantasy in
Mm-hmm.
your mind, or just focus on the presence of
Yeah.
yourself. Focus on what feels good. Focus on the touch. Focus on the heat, the warmth. If you are going to be sitting there for a half an hour, why not give yourself the best pleasure that you
Mm-hmm.
can?
Pleasure in all areas of our life. Why do so many women not seek it in sexuality? It's obviously because of all the shame and everything we're fed, but it's silly to me. Like, we're all going to pick the nice chair we want to sit in. We're all going to pick the temperature of the water that we want in the shower because we want to feel good. We want comfort. We want to feel wonderful sensations. Apply that to sexuality too, your sex life. Don't leave that out. That is just as important, maybe even more so important than the temperature of your shower.
Absolutely. I like that. It's a good analogy. And so speaking about the heat and the temperature of the shower, you write across a lot of heat levels and subgenres like queer romance, paranormal, rom-com. So what are you feeling like you are learning about female desire from writing across all different, genres?
Definitely tremendously a lot. And I know that, there are a lot of women who are turned off by certain words, a certain amount of content of sex in a book. But women that can learn to open up their minds and not be so judgmental are going to also maybe open up their own brains and their minds and explore new
Mm.
things. I really enjoy writing across all these different subgenres. Not that, there are books that don't have sex in them. And I under another pen name, I write a few books but they still have a little bit of spiciness to them. But that doesn't mean that you have to exclude sex from your books just because you think that it is not proper or whatever. Like, I don't know. I guess you just really got to focus on your pleasure. And if you don't, you're going to miss out.
I mean, that's basically,
Like,
it's basically what you're learning from what you're writing and about how female desire.
I think that I've learned a lot too, just from all the people I've interviewed and all the different books I've written, that it's really about your comfort level and feeling safe. And if you can get yourself to feeling safe, then you can start to explore sexuality more. So, reading a book is a tremendous place to be safe, because guess what you can do? You can put that book down, be like, okay, I've had enough of this for right now.
Yeah.
Right? You just close that puppy. It's not like you're sitting with somebody in a room and you're facing them and you're direct, So it's just so much safer, and you can process. You can process these thoughts in a safe space, which maybe will help you learn more about your own sexuality. I happen to be very open, so I write about a lot of different types of sexualities, from queer, paranormal, erotic, rom-coms. I mean, just all of it, because it all is fascinating and interesting to me, and I like to explore all those areas. And I think that if you read those different kind of books, you might find that you can expand yours and find something new that you, even if you don't want to physically do it in real life, that you could fantasize about, or just consider trying, or even talk about, right? It's the way to talk about something.
Yeah, and sometimes the best fantasy is using it with your partner. So whatever you can learn from a book, you can talk to your partner about it if you struggle, and you can say, maybe read this with me. This is something I might want to do with you, versus this is something that we have to do with other people, or with all this crazy stuff that may be involved in it. And that's helping you open up that line of communication with your partner.
For sure. I think that's one of the best ways to bring up different kinks with your partner, is to read it or listen to it together, and then like look at each other and be like, well, what'd you think of that? Right? Like, you're going to get maybe, it's going to be maybe more their honest opinion, where it's not like you're asking them a direct question, hey, will you tie me up? Like you would read it and be like, what did you think of that? Right? Like, so it's kind of a gateway to talking about kinks.
Yes. So what is next for you? Do you have more books? Do you have something in the works, or where can people find you to get some of the books? I know that we have a little banner that we put up here, which will also be in the show notes, on how people can contact you. But let us know kind of if there's anything in the works.
Writing the second book to the first book is something that I wrote. I started out as just short stories and then novellas, and then it became a full book. And it's a retelling of Snow White. So it's a dark romance, and it's spring break and stranded at a cabin with 8 men. Now I'm writing book 2, which is spring break and stranded at a cabin with 7 chosen men. So that's the one I'm writing right now, which will come out in November. And I have so many things that I already published 2 books this year. I have 2 more coming out, and a novella. And there's so many books that I want to write, and so many ideas in my head, so many stories. It takes time to write these, obviously, but so that's the one I'm writing right now. And it's a dark romance. It is polyamory. It is a love triangle. And there's dark elements in there, because, with Snow White, there's the witch, right? That has this juicy apple for Snow White, and she, come try this. So yeah, there's there's a lot of that there. And people like that book. It's really interesting, because it's all about her pleasure. So like she's with all these men, right? So she's like a goddess, and she's getting so much pleasure trying out all her different fantasies. And yeah, so it's really a lot of fun. She kind of feels like she's in like a fairy tale world, because they're at this cabin for a week alone, and it's kind of like
the idea.
A break from reality. Yeah. So she's like getting this break from reality, and like it's not, it's just this place to like play and have fun. Like the whole phrase, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." What happens at the cabin stays at the cabin. We shall see, but
right.
So that's what I'm going on in the podcast. I'm always doing the podcast as well. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I like to give a permission slip to everybody every week, just to give them permission, like we talked about before. So this week's permission slip goes out to every single person who has ever felt guilty for wanting something and fantasizing. So for maybe reading something that turns you on, or for letting your mind go somewhere that felt a little too good. You were taught that. Those are messages from society. You were not born with that guilt. Someone actually handed it to you. And today we are giving this shit back. Your fantasies are not wrong. Your desire is not too much. And reading a book that lights you up from the inside out. Whew, I got goosebumps even saying that.
Yes.
That is not something that you ever need to apologize for. And that is called being human. So enjoy it.
100% agree with all of that.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Ruan, I just have to say, I love you for all of this. It was great talking with you. The fact that you literally write the whole story and putting women's pleasure on a page where we can be read over and over again. You refuse to let shame win. And that matters so much more than people realize, because there's just too many women with all of that shame. And I just appreciate you being here. And listeners, I had the information up for Ruan for the books. I will have them in the show notes. You will not regret it.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm very driven to do this, and I love it, and I hope you enjoy.
Absolutely. Thank you again so much. So that is it for this episode of the Purple Passion Project, where we show up, go deep, and never pretend that your sex life does not matter. So if today stirred something in you, which I hope it did, let it, because that feeling is exactly where change begins. Hit subscribe wherever you listen, and find me on YouTube or anywhere on social media at Dr. Stacy Friedman, and come hang out with me in the Vibe Tribe, where you can hang out with so many people, have the live Q&A, the courses, community, everything like that. So just go to drstacyfriedman.com, click Vibe Tribe, come find your people. Until next time, stay curious, stay turned on, and never apologize for wanting more. And remember, your sex life does not have an expiration date. Now go live it. We'll see you next time.
This has been the Purple Passion Project with host Dr. Stacy Friedman. Tune in each week as Dr. Stacy breaks down walls, busting myths, and gives you permission to want more with no shame, no filters, and definitely no small talk. Check in every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, on your favorite streaming platforms. We look forward to seeing you next time. Be sure to visit drstacyfriedman.com to learn more.